What is something that you used to do as a kid and only realized years later to be extremely inappropriate? Story 1. One time, my friend and I were playing downstairs in the basement, and we were like 5 years old and didn't really understand private parts. Just strangers and stuff shouldn't see them. Well, my friend and I weren't strangers. We were friends, so sometimes playing, we'd take our pants and underwear off and continue playing. We didn't really look at each other's junk and butt, but we sort of just went on with our playing. I guess we thought in the privacy in your own home, you could get as nude as you wanted. I guess like the Fight Club, you never talk about the Fight Club. So we never mentioned it at all. One day, I took off my stuff and started playing and noticed he wasn't doing the same thing. I asked him about it and he didn't give any response, so I put my pants and underwear back and I said, I sort of thought we were going to do that. And he pulls down his pants and underwear and sprints upstairs to my mom and cries, saying that I forced him to take off his pants and underwear. My mom got super pissed, although when she was my age, she probably did the same thing. And I got in huge trouble. I was mad at him for a while, but we became friends again. He came over to my house and we start playing again. And about 20 minutes in, he whips down his pants and underwear and slaps his ass hard, runs up to tell my parents I forced him to pull down his pants, and then I slapped his butt. My mom was out, so he told my dad. And at that age, I was usually afraid of my dad. He was tall and usually yelled and got mad a lot. And guess what frickin' happened? There's nothing wrong with nudity, provided nobody is forced to do it. Story 2. Not really inappropriate, but more extremely dangerous. My dad had this old station wagon from the late 1970s throughout most of my childhood that I thought was amazing. It was big and there was so much to play in the back. Sometimes I would put on puppet shows for the cars behind us in traffic when we stopped at a red light. As dangerous as it was for a small child to be loose in the back of a station wagon without a seatbelt, I used to play an even more dangerous game sometime. I would lay across the top of the back seat and try to remain as stiff as possible. When my dad would brake, accelerate, the momentum would cause my body to fall either on the cushioned seat in front of me or on the old couch cushions my dad had put in the back. I thought it was so much fun to roll and fall one way, then get back up and fall the other, and I would play this game a lot. It wasn't until years later that I realized how dangerous that was. I was a kid just openly playing a falling game in the back of a station wagon. Luckily, my dad is a great driver and we never got into any accidents, but if we did, I would have gone flying out the front or back windows and probably killed instantly. Story 3. When I was a kid, I was a super tomboy, so all of my friends were boys. I think they kind of accepted me as one of their own, and gender never really became a consideration. At least that is my theory as to why this happened. I was hanging out with my bestie, Eli, in my bedroom back when I was like 6. He told me he wanted to play a game that all the boys in the class had played and I couldn't tell anyone. They called it the penis game. Before I could even react, he whipped it out. Apparently the point was just to show it. I told him I didn't want to. A couple of weeks later, I really wanted to sleep over with him. My parents said no, and I thought I wasn't allowed because he was a boy, which is actually plausible. So, in my brilliance, I told them, it's fine, I can sleep over because I've already seen his penis. That didn't go over well. Ha ha, definitely not the kind of thing to say to parents. Story 4. When I was 11, my family got cable and we sat down to watch Good Morning Vietnam, when Robin Williams said, "You're in more dire need of a blowjob than any white man in history." I turned to my mother and said, "Mom, what's a blowjob?" I had never seen her cringe in my life until that moment, but in a rare show, my dad came to her rescue and said, "She doesn't know." Story 5. When we were about 6 or 7, my friend and I, both female, used to play house. For some reason, it was decided that I was the house. I would lie on the floor and she would cover me with a blanket. My limbs were different rooms. My head was the bathroom. Story 6. So when I was around 6 to 7, someone kept tagging all the signposts around our area with black stickers with orgy written on them in neon orange or neon green. After I kept seeing them, I asked in front of the whole family, "What's an orgy?" My sisters, 17, 18 at the time, looked very uneasily at my parents and they managed to come up with the answer, "It's a party." I replied, "I want to go to an orgy." Kids are hilarious. I wonder at what point you found out what it actually means. Story 7. Not me, but my older sister. Background. I have a very racist grandpa. We've been trying to correct him for years, and he's finally gotten to the point where he thinks there are a few good blacks. Horrible, but still a major improvement. Anyway, one time the window of his truck got broken, and he complained about how it was the goddamn nigger in front of my sister. As 2-year-olds so often do, she modeled his behavior. Apparently, it took a long time for my sister to stop yelling, "You goddamn haggers!" at any black people she saw. Thank God she mispronounced it. Story 8. Being a girl, I got a lot of baby dolls when I was young. This being the late 80s and early 90s, a lot of them were pretty frickin' hideous. So I did what any girl would do in that situation. I scribbled over their faces with a red marker, then hosted a public execution for them for the crime of being ugly. I'd hang them with yarn and scrunches around their necks, then bury them in the back of my closet to be forgotten about. I had my cuter stuffed animals and dolls watch, so they'd know what happened to ugly people. I was bullied a lot. I hope you don't feel that way about people you consider ugly now. Scary, to say the least. Story 9. I was 12. My older female babysitter, who was 14 at the time, came over to basically put my baby sister to sleep and then wait while my parents went on date night or whatever. When it got close to my bedtime, she asked if I wanted a shower or bath to get it ready for me, and I said bath. So she got up, and several minutes later, I hear her call, "It's ready." So I went to the bathroom, and she was in the tub already with her bra and underwear on. And she asked if it was okay if she joined. I said something like, "Only if I get my swim trunks on." And so when I got back and in the tub with her, we started playing around, splashing and giggling. And this just so happened to be the first few times I got a boner. As soon as I noticed, I got really embarrassed, and she then saw it through the water. And then a few moments later, I see her panties come out from the tub water, and we felt each other up in the tub every time she came over after that. We never actually had full-on sex, but man, did she love giving oral. Story 10. Lol. As a kid, me and my best friend used to play something we called the money game. First, we made a bunch of fake money from green paper. Then we put on really slutty clothes that she supplied, just miniskirts and stuff. I never owned any stuff like that, and pretended my four-poster bed was a boxing ring, and we would strip for an imaginary crowd of men, then pretend like they were flinging $1 at us. We couldn't have been older than like 9. No clue how it came about, but I'm pretty sure it was her that brought it to the table. My family, though liberal, was a bit closer to middle than hers. It was purely for fun and not sexual at all. Weird. I wonder what your friend had been watching. Story 11. Not me, but my nephew, who will realize it's massively inappropriate because I keep recording it because it's freaking hilarious. He humps the floor, like straight up pushes his little 3-year-old crotch into the ground and gyrates. Doesn't matter where he is or who is watching, he cannot resist that sexy floor. It's got to the point now where his parents have to reward him for not humping the floor. Story 12. When I was 6 or 7 years old, my parents got me this children's book about human body. The one thing I took from it was the reproductive system. Of course, I had no idea what sex was back then, but I vaguely remember that I pretended that the big haystack in our backyard was an egg and I was a sperm. I literally crawled like a snake in the grass towards the haystack, dove my head into it, and screamed, "Fertilization!" Not inappropriate since only my parents saw it, but I think it's worth mentioning. That's crazy. Were you a sperm in a past life? Story 13. More hilariously dangerous than inappropriate, really. I like to make potions by combining everything I found under the bathroom sink. I would then laugh maniacally at my eldritch creation, feed it to my stuffed animals, and inevitably dump it on the lawn. This was always unsupervised because it made Mom angry for some reason. I am honestly surprised I didn't wind up making mustard gas and kill myself. Story 14. In middle school, there was a group project where we had to make a video depicting the historic events of the decade we were assigned. My group got the 60s, so we decided to include a skit about some of the decade's famous musicians. I portrayed Jimi Hendrix while wearing full black face. Kids will be kids. You didn't mean anything bad by it. Story 15. I was about 7 years old. I had never seen black people before. I grew up in rural parts of Canada, and my father took me to Montreal to see museums and go see an IMAX film. So we end up driving to the nearest underground metro subway station to park there and take the metro to the city. And then I see black people everywhere. Holy shit. So I just keep quiet and follow my dad inside the train. We're surrounded by black men and women sitting next to us and standing too. And then I ask my dad, why are there so many black people? Are we taking the train to Africa? My dad's face turns bloodshot red and the black woman looks at me smiling. My dad is mortified and we got off the next stop. He still likes to tell this story at family gatherings. Story 16. When I was a kid, like 5, I tied up my Barbie dolls. This was my favorite thing to do with them. It was really fun and exciting for some reason. I played that Barbie had to be rescued to get out. She was totally helpless. Later, I played tied up Barbie dolls with my best friend, and her mom spoke to mine, and they both found it very odd. As an adult, I wonder if this was some early manifestation of my bondage fetish. Certainly sounds like the beginnings of a fetish. Story 17. I just remembered recently a story I used to tell people that I remember thinking was really interesting to everyone. The whole story was literally just I used to know a kid that picked his butt, picked his nose, picked his ear, and then ate it. I would tell people that from ages like 6 to 10, I'm guessing, hoping it wasn't longer, and just remembered it now. I never even knew anyone that did that. I made it all up. The combination of the fact that I was lying and that I thought it was a genuinely interesting story back then makes me cringe to this day. Story 18. Not me, but still relevant. I was at my uncle's 50th birthday party this summer. The morning after, about 40 people came over for breakfast. We were all hung over outside, and my 10-year-old cousin started yelling happily. We all looked over, and he was peeing on the fence, cheering happily because his pee was split into 2 streams, leaving wet marks on the wood. My uncle told him to stop, but he didn't. He kept obnoxiously cheering and telling everybody to look. So my uncle walks over and whispers something to him. The pee slowly stopped, like when you put a kink in a hose. My uncle explained to him that he was basically announcing to almost 50 people that he masturbated the night before. He stayed in his room until everybody left. It was so cringy. He's only 10 for crying out loud. Your uncle embarrassed him needlessly. Also, I doubt everybody knows about the masturbation connection or whatever. Story 19. As a kid, me and my best friend used to play something we called the money game. Oh God, I remember this and cringe just thinking how awkward it was for my parents to watch. When I was little, about age 6 through 9, I was obviously out of the loop on anything sexual, especially masturbating. We had one of those electric brushes used to massage your scalp. I used it while watching TV with my parents right in the crotch area. I used to cover myself with a pillowcase or something. I guess I always knew it was kind of wrong. The worst of all, everyone could hear the loud buzzing coming from between my legs. Story 20. During the night, rather than get up and get a tissue, I would put my boogers on the wall behind my bed. Apparently, boogers turn into cement over time, and my mom was none too pleased when she moved the bed to paint the wall and found my masterpiece. That's seriously gross. Story 21. I used to sneak into my elderly neighbor's house and hide behind the couch. She would call my mom and tell her whenever I was over there so that my mom wouldn't freak out wondering where the hell I was. I also had a habit of just barging into my best friend's house whenever I felt like. No one taught me about knocking or doorbells, apparently. Story 22. My brother learned that sexy was a bad word, but didn't know what it meant. Bad meaning inappropriate. He was like 6. Once, he got mad at me at a family gathering, threw a fit, and screamed that I was sexy. It was incredibly freaking awkward. Yes, kids can be very embarrassing. Careful what you say around them. Story 23. I took one of those disposable cameras and took pictures of me nude at like 5 years old and buried them like time capsules. Story 24. I was so proud of not having a gag reflex. I told everyone I met. Okay, that might make some people wonder. Story 25. I did all these weird sexual things with my next door neighbor when we were 6. We'd kiss and touch each other's butts. Nothing more than that, but we're both girls, and now she's a super Christian churchgoer who posts and shares Bible quotes and stories about waiting for a man with the right values. Story 26. I always said good riddance to people because I thought it was a classy goodbye. Oh no, you must be very lonely then. Story 27. I used to call black people chocolate people. Click on one of the videos on the screen now, or Karen will sue you.